So today, we're going to dive into a company that's at a really dramatic crossroads. And honestly, it presents a classic high-stakes dilemma for any investor. On one hand, you've got a seriously troubled past. We're talking major allegations and even the Supreme Court getting involved. But on the other hand, a billion-dollar lifeline from a brand new, very deep-pocketed owner. So the big question is, which force is stronger, the past or the future? Let's break it down.
All right, first up, let's just jump right into the event that really threw this company into the spotlight and sent some major shockwaves through the market. 13% down in a single day. Yeah, that's the kind of drop that makes you sit up and pay attention. The market reacted, and it reacted fast and hard to some pretty startling news. But you know, it's the source of that news that makes this whole story so fascinating.
Now check this out. The trigger wasn't some new scandal. Instead, it was this incredibly sharp criticism directly from India's Supreme Court. They essentially called out the country's top investigators for having a friendly attitude and for their, quote, reluctance in looking into old allegations against the company, back when it was called India Bulls. That's pretty intense.
You can just imagine this kind of public rebuke from the highest court in the land created a perfect storm. It dragged all the old legal troubles back into the light, sparked a fresh wave of panic in the market, and left investors everywhere asking this one very big question.
To really get what's happening here, to understand the risk but also the potential opportunity, we've got to peel back the layers on the company's history. Because that new name, Sammaan Capital, well, that's only part of the story.
So just this year, the company decided to rebrand, changing its name from India Bulls Housing Finance. But as we just saw with the Supreme Court case, its past is absolutely central to what's happening today. And make no mistake, this is a major player in India's mortgage industry, which makes this whole situation even more significant.
This timeline really lays out the tension perfectly. Look, the allegations surfaced way back in 2019. Since then, the original promoter, he's completely out of the picture. The company even has a brand new name. And yet here we are, 5 years later, and the Supreme Court is dragging it all back to the surface. That right there is the ghost that haunts this stock. Okay, so what was the big accusation? In simple terms, a whistleblower claimed the company was giving out these large, sketchy loans. And that money then allegedly found its way back, it was round-tripped, into companies owned by the promoter himself. Now, it is really important to note the company's position on this is that these claims have been looked at before by regulators, and they found no evidence of wrongdoing. But just as this ghost from the past comes knocking, something massive happens that completely changes the game for Sammaan Capital. And for investors, this is where the story takes a really interesting turn.
$1 billion. That's the number. Abu Dhabi's International Holding Company, or IHC, one of the most aggressive and powerful investment firms in the Middle East, has gotten the green light to pump a staggering amount of cash into the company. It is a huge vote of confidence, happening right in the middle of this legal tornado.
And this chart, it shows you just how huge this change really is. IHC isn't just a passive investor. They're becoming the new promoter, taking a massive 43% stake. But, and this is a big but for existing shareholders, this rescue comes at a price. Your piece of the pie gets a lot smaller, shrinking from nearly 100% down to just 57% to make room for this new majority owner. Okay, so you've got this massive legal storm on one side and this billion-dollar rescue package on the other. This sets up a classic bull versus bear debate. So let's really break down the fundamental arguments, both for and against Sammaan Capital, from an investor's point of view.
Now, to get a really objective view here, we're not just going to rely on the headlines. We're going to turn to the pros, the independent credit rating agency ICRA. They've done a deep dive into the company's financials, and their report gives us a solid, unbiased foundation to understand the real strengths and weaknesses here.
And boom, this slide basically lays out the entire investment debate in one shot. The bull case is all about the future. It's a bet on new money, new management, and a new, smarter strategy. The bear case, though, argues you just can't ignore the past, the legal nightmare, those risky old loans, and a pretty poor track record when it comes to financial performance. So, for the bears, the people who are pessimistic about this stock, the crucial point is that the past is still very much alive on the balance sheet. Profitability has been weak, leading to a huge net loss last fiscal year. Why? Because of these large provisions, which is basically the company setting aside a bunch of money because they're worried those old loans might go bad. And all of this has made it tougher and more expensive to borrow new money to grow.
But then you have the bulls, the optimists, and they are looking straight ahead. That $1 billion from IHC, it's going to massively strengthen the company's financial foundation. They're also pivoting to a much smarter asset-light business model. Think of it this way. They find the customers, but they partner with banks who put up a lot of the cash, so they share the risk. It's a lower-risk, more scalable way to operate. And you can't just ignore their existing foundation. They are still one of the biggest and most experienced mortgage lenders in the entire country.
All right, let's bring it all home. We've seen the storm, the history, the huge rescue package, and the fundamentals. So what does this all mean for someone looking at this stock today?
At the end of the day, it all comes down to what you believe. The bull case is your classic turnaround story. New capital and a new strategy are going to wipe the slate clean. The bear case, on the other hand, is a clear warning that the financial and legal baggage from the past is simply too heavy to overcome.
So, for any investor trying to make a call on Sammaan Capital, it all boils down to this one single, powerful question. Is the new promoter and their massive war chest of cash enough to build a totally new future, or will the ghosts of India bulls continue to haunt the company? That right there, that is the billion-dollar bet.